Good morning, everyone. First topic, intrusion detection or prevention system. So this is an engine we have built into the LoadMaster that is able to deal with the rule set from snort.org. And we have a starter rule set already included. You can write your own rules and add them as well. And you can globally choose how paranoid this system is going. I will show that in the demo in a minute. And you can choose, should it block or deny and lock. So these are your choices. It's a global setting you can choose, and you can just enable it in a main virtual service. So not in a sub-VS, it's on the main virtual service. But that's about it. There's not more to tune on this. I also collected a few links. I hope they continue to work, because at the moment all the links are migrated to progress, to a progress page. So this was still valid in May. So I hope they're still valid now. If not, let me know and I will get you the new links for that. So in that case, we should start the live demo straight away. I hope my lab is not sleeping yet. Nope. Great. Okay, so I have a LoadMaster here. And now it's important to know where are those settings. So as you can see, I'm nearly at the latest version. I know we have 60.1 out, so I'm nearly at the latest version. You find on certificates and security, and then you have IPS, IDS. This is your setting where you can globally import new rules and install them, and where you can globally set what kind of paranoia should be done. Should it only lock and not reject anything? Should it only reject critical or serious and critical, or should it reject all kind of issues that are detected? So this is a global setting. On an older firmware, let me think. If you are on LTS on 48 dot something, you will find this in your miscellaneous options, and then it will be in here as well. Okay, good. Now, how do I enable this now in a virtual service? I can demo that to you. So you go to your HTTP service. Obviously, this is a setting for HTTPS services only. And there you find in the advanced properties, detect malicious request. And this is the IPS IDS system. So you just tick the box, and now it's asking, okay, for this intrusion handling, should I send a reject or should I drop the connection? And do you want me to lock this in the logs or not? So that's it. These are all the settings you have. So you can send a reject, for example, and do a warning, and that's it. Now, I must say this morning, as I was still helping another customer, I wanted to create a rule that I can trigger and show you, but I didn't got the chance to finish that this morning, so sorry for that. Right now, I tested earlier on to trigger something, but my request all still went through without any rule being triggered. So I very likely need to write my own rule to demo you a sample, but normally no one asked me to demo it yet, so this is it's a new thing. Mostly people ask me for WAF and not for this. Because why do I say that? When you have the Web Application Firewall, they check those rules anyway, so you don't need both things. That makes no sense. So when you have WAF, you don't need this So when you don't use WAF, fair enough, that makes sense. But as soon as you enable WAF, you don't need this anymore. So from that perspective, yeah, if you're really looking for security, you go for WAF because you can fine tune that for each service, fine tune that for each sub-service if you want to. So it makes more sense to have the WAF rather than this global kind of prevention system. But if you didn't choose the WAF subscription, then and you have enterprise level, then this makes sense. Cool. Right, so we're just 12 minutes in, so that was a very short topic, but that gives us more time to talk about the second topic instead. And maybe I can give you some minutes back of your time. So Web Application Firewall, how can I write my own rules that generate logs for something that I normally don't see? So let's have a look. First of all, what is the Web Application Firewall? It's an engine that works with a core rule set to protect yourself against OWASP top 10. It gets daily IP updates for IP reputation and for country matching. And we can inspect the inbound and the outbound traffic. Some of you might remember the old WAF we had, the legacy WAF. Normally those settings should disappear now in the next firmware. They will all disappear, so you won't see those anymore. So the new WAF is much, much more capable than the previous one. The only thing that it does not have is application-specific rules, because we want to be able to catch zero-day attacks as well, rather than something that's known for a few months and no one is using that threat anymore. So if you want something specific, you can write your own rules, obviously, to add, but there won't be a folder for a specific application anymore. We had that in the previous one, but that didn't work out because Trustwave was way too slow to add new rules, and then they didn't put them in the right folder, so that was a complete mess. So the new enhanced WAF is much, much better. Is your WAF a replacement for your perimeter firewall? No, it's not. It's an addition. So normally a perimeter firewall is not able to open HTTPS traffic to review headers and so on. So that's where the WAF is helping, because the load balancer is able to open SSL and then it's able to detect threats. I know there are firewalls that can do that, fair enough, but most of them can't. Now, for the WAF, important to know, there are 4 kind of risk classes, okay? So risk class 0 means no personal data is in my application. So that's paranoia level 1. If someone gets through, there's no personal data that can be received or stolen, no usernames, no email addresses, and so on. Risk class 1 means there is personal data involved, so there's names, addresses, and so on. So this would be paranoia level 2. Paranoia risk class 2, sorry, means sensible data. So for example, I'm having an application for internet banking or something like that. Loads of sensible data, so addresses, birthdays, passwords, financial records, whatever. All of this risk class 2. So this is paranoia level 3. And risk class 3, that's the highest risk class you can be in, super sensitive. So you own an atomic plant, or you have all the keys to the nuclear rockets stationed everywhere. So this is paranoia level 4, obviously. Now, what you start with, you always start with level 1. You fine tune that, you bring down your threshold of how many rules can be triggered to cause a reject. And once you're finished with that, then you review level 2 and you start to fine tune there. And then you can move your security up to level 2 and so on and so on. For level 1, you don't need to have loads of mod security background. It's very easy to fine tune. But the higher your paranoia level, the more difficult the fine tuning is going to be. Right, so there's the higher you get, the more aggressive those rules will be, and the more false positives you're gonna have. So normally our customers are on level 1 and 2. Sometimes they are more, but then they need mod security knowledge, right? Those rules that are in the core rule set, they have different anomaly scores. So they could be in notice, so that's 2 points. Warning is 3, error is 4, and critical is 5. 5 is the maximum score you can get by triggering one rule. And the paranoia level at the beginning when you enable WAF on the LoadMaster is 100. So that means you could trigger up to 20 critical rules in one request before the WAF will deny, which is correct. And the reason for that is we want to make sure you can enable the WAF in a production service without harming anyone that's using the service, right? So you then step by step perform your fine tuning. And with each round of fine tuning, you lower your threshold score. And what you want to be reaching is 2 points or 1 point at one stage. Okay, so that means when your threshold is that low, as soon as one rule is triggered, it's a deny. Okay. Sorry now. For that, in order to tune that nicely, we have 2 different levels. Blocking level is the one that is executed and the score is used for the calculation of when should I block. So you start on 1, that's a preset setting, same with the execution level. That means you only look at rules in level 1 and they are counted. Once you have your threshold down to 1 and you have fine-tuned all of level 1, you can set your execution level up to level 2. So the execution level means the rules are executed. So you see when the rule is triggered, but it does not count towards the threshold limit. That means you can stay with a threshold of 1. So as soon as one rule is triggered, it's down. But you can look at the rules of paranoia level 2. You can fine tune without that harming your production. And once you are finished with fine tuning, you move your blocking level up to level 2. And then the rules are counted towards the threshold as well. And if you want, you can then continue on. Now, some ask me, okay, what kind of numbers can I use when I create my own rules? There is some namespace definition for that. So the OWASP project rules, the core rules are 900,000 to 1 below 1 million. And according to mod security, all rules between 10,000 and 49.99, they are running before the code rule set is running, even though the load balancer also has a tick box to say this rule should be triggered first. And the rule numbers 50,000 to 1 below 80,000, they should run after the code reset. So that's just to get that information. How can I now write a rule? What you need to know is there are multiple, it's a specific language, right? And there are multiple parameters to set. So first of all, you have a directive. This could be sec rule, for example. Then you have a variable. It's telling mod security where to look. Sometimes you can call it target, right? So you say, for example, I'm looking for a variable, so for a request URI, for example. So that's the URL, the directory that people are entering. Then you have an operator. So this is what need to be triggered to match. So here in this case, you see it's doing a regular expression and it's checking /index PHP. You might have transforms or transformations. So this is, for example, if you have requests coming from Windows and some coming from Linux systems. So for example, to lowercase everything, to make sure this is matched. If someone puts this in capital letters, it would not match unless I have this transformation here. So this is, for example, that. So sometimes you want to transform it into a unique code that no matter where it comes from is unique and can be matched. And then you have actions. So for example, the ID number, what phase this should run in, should it block, should it deny, should it lock, should it allow the traffic, and so on. So this is what the action is about. So this is the general form of those rules within mod security. Now, just to give you a little overview, the variables, there are actually 105 variables, and they have 6 different categories. So as you see, request header, request cookies, response parts. Then you have server variables, time variables, collection variables, and miscellaneous variables. You have 36 operators in 4 different categories, so straighters, numerical ones, validation operators, and miscellaneous operators. Transformations, there are 35 transformations, 6 different categories. I only put 4 in here to give you the gist of it. So lowercase, normalize the path, base 64 G-code, for example, or hash functions, and so on. And then you have 47 actions in 6 different categories. So actions that will disrupt, like block, drop, deny, and so on. Then you have flow actions. You can chain 2 rules together, or you can say skip the next rules to come afterwards. Metadata actions, which phase, which ID, if you want a message locked, or if you want a tag or a severity score. And then there is variable actions, so you can capture something or set new variables. You can lock or no lock, and you also have options, for example, to pause or to amend a certain thing. So disruptive actions, I just thought it makes sense to put a few more in here. The ones you will probably use most of the time is allow, block, deny, and pass. I think these are the more or less the 4 that are mainly used. So pass means I can continue with the next rule. Allow, just to compare that, means I'm not looking at any other rules, I'm just passing it through. Now I'm finished here, I'm not looking any further, done. That's the difference. So both has a positive thing, but pass means I can still review the other rules. Allow means here's finished, I'm just continuing through. So that's something to look out for. Okay, and I thought string match operations, that's also important to know. How, when you write your own rules, how can I request or oh, sorry, my bad. What do I need to enter in order to match a certain string? Now, I was talking about phases. So this is a picture Mr. Follini, who is actually one of the head people in the OWASP Top 10 project. He drew this himself. So there are 4, nearly 5 phases, right? So phase 1 is when the SSL connection is established and we receive the SSL handshake and so on. And phase 1 is finishing just shortly after we receive the request header. So this is when phase 1 is finishing up. Then as soon as we get the request body, this is when phase 2 is starting. And phase 2 is finishing after the server is responding. So as soon as we get the response header, phase 2 finished and phase 3 is starting. And when we got the response body, this is the end of phase 3. Phase 4 is now starting, sending the answer back to the client. And after the answer has reached the client, phase 5 is starting to just do logs and clean up and so on. So based on this, you can actually write your own rules to start at a certain phase in this process. Phase 3 and 4 is obviously for the response of the server going back, and phase 1 and 2 is for the client request to come in, just to be aware of that. So there are multiple ways to have rules interact. So you can, for example, remove an entire rule for a certain scenario. For example, with sec rule removed by ID, you can simply say, okay, in this circumstance, when, for example, my monitoring system is coming through here, I'm now disabling the rule that is checking for the host name to be more than an IP address. So you can disable a rule for a certain scenario right at the beginning. There's also an option to remove a rule or to disable a rule in the process, right? Not from the beginning on, but in the process. And similar with parameter changes, so you can advise rule with a new parameter right at the beginning or during the process as well. Here I got some samples for this. So the first rule is a fine-tuning rule. Here in this case, the content rule or the call rule set 920350. So this is the rule to match on alphanumeric headers. So when you put an IP address, for example, for your service, rather than host name, then this rule is triggered. But now let's say, back to the sample I just mentioned, I now have a monitoring system, this guy, and when he is matched in the source address, then as you can see here, the rule number such and such should be disabled for this user only for this client. Every client with a different IP address, the rule will not be triggered and the original rule will remain. But only for this guy, this rule is not taken into account. So this is what fine-tuning is about. Here is a different sample. So this was a customer of mine who created his own access deny lists with WAF. So he built rules to say either you are from this source address or from this range or from this range, then you're allowed to continue on, allow. But if you are in any other rule, any other IP range other than these three, then it's a deny. So pretty nice, sorry. With these 4 rules, he only had limited the clients must be out of these 3 ranges. And if not, it's automatically a deny. Down here, I did a different rule. You see there's a different operator here at the beginning. So it's not sec rule, it's sec action. So he's performing something. And what it's doing, it's setting a new variable. So there's a variable allowed request content types. And it's overwriting the existing original contact types that are in those lists and is adding more to them. So for example, here in this case, I did enter MAPI, and I think I had 1 or 2 more that I entered into the list to make sure I don't get alarms because of a wrong request content that's not allowed. So I just amended the rule that is there already and the file that's there already and added more to the list. Okay. Obviously, all of this is documented, on our progress documentations, Kemp documentations. You can find information on NetNea about the call rule set and also on callruleset.org. Cool. Now, that was the theory on how do I write logs, general WAF rules in the first place. Now let's have a look at this. I hope my lab is still not asleep. No, cool. Right. So just to show you what we can log, right? Just turning this off. So in general, what do we see when I do a normal request like this. When I just request a web page, what can I normally see? So the server sees my query, it sees my URL, that's what the server can see, but the load balancer log, when it's a successful connection, does not tell me anything. Nothing at all. So not good. Now, when I enable the ESP logs and with delegated server already, and I just don't want any security based from the ESP, I just want to get information. Now my request goes through. What do I see in the logs? Let's have a look. I can now see a connection. Yeah, I should not export them to WAF, so give me a second. We need to do it again. My bad. There you go. So you see my client connected to the VIP. Okay, that's the first thing I see, but not much. I don't know what they have called for. What did they do? I didn't do any authentication. I don't have any security levels, so I don't see anything there. But hopefully we get a bit more information in the user log. And yeah, here we go. So I now know the client and the high port the client is coming from. I know they go to the VIP. Cool. And I see what they have requested. So they did a GET request on my host name. And of course, on the logo and on the favicon icon. That makes total sense. And I also see where they came from. But didn't we request a path here? So the query item that we did request, the load balancer has not logged that. That's shameful, right? We know the directory we went to, but the query item and anything is not there. So we don't see that. Pretty bad. What you can do, you can here, I hope it's readable. So you can create a rule to say, okay, I want, for example, the raw URI, the way it was sent from the client. I want to match that. Okay, so that's what I do here. Sec rule. I want the request URI in raw, and I'm matching everything unconditional. So whatever comes in, I match it. I have a new ID, so this is 20,004. It's phase 1 right at the beginning. I want to pass, so it can continue on. And the log data is my matched variable from up there, so I can log what's happened there. And I have set a message, so the log data is my URI raw. Then I fill it in here. I also fill in the request header names, request cookies. So you see, I kind of played around with it to add as much detail as I can with that rule. So let's import this to the load balancer. So come on, let's close this a little bit. Custom rules. So now I'm going and import this rule to there we go, WAF logging, there we go. So I'm now importing this rule. It's installed, it was all correct, it filled the check. It doesn't matter if it's called conf or text, so it logged in. And now in my service, in my WAF engine, I can tell him, hey, I want my WAF logging also used. And I can even say I want this to run at the beginning, right at the beginning. Obviously for logs, makes sense to get the full intel. So now it's applied. Obviously I need to enable WAF, otherwise it makes no sense. And when I now request this path, so you see WAF is it still went through. I don't see any changes. I still have my normal logs for ESP without the query item, but you now see there are rules triggered. So that's the normal WAF rule that will trigger for the bin bash, and another rule that's triggered for the wrong host name. Fair enough. But you see also my log rule that is triggered, telling me information about the requested things. So let's have a look right now. Here, common execution, there you see, and the match data was bin bash, right? So that piece is included. I have the host name of my VIP where it was triggered. So all of that information is in there. I now have the query item also in there. So that's how simple you can create rules to match. Cool. I hope that helped. I think with that we actually have, oh, by the way, this was the one. So you see here, raw means my URI was root, my query item completely in here. So it even does the request line completely. It allows me the header where it came from, so it has all of these pieces included. Great. And you find these information also in your WAF logs. So let me show you the WAF log, because this might be hard to read. So the WAF log, come on. There's the WAF event log. And there you can see now that my rule has triggered and logged all of this information for me. Great. Cool. With that, I actually finish right on time. So if you have questions, please shoot. Otherwise, I give you 20 minutes back of your day, and I'm looking forward to your feedback.
I see one question, Radar.
Yeah, I see that. A second. Let me open this. Not necessarily. So the question is, the standard practice is to use WAF for internet-facing servers. I mean, you can do that. If you want to protect your server, then it makes sense. But WAF means simply web access, right? And you want to secure your web access. So theoretically, I don't want to talk bad about your workers internally, but they can also cause a threat to your server. So that can technically also run a script, an SQL injection and so on, and harm your server. So technically, you can also run it internally, and you should. Because, you know, attacks are not only coming from the outside world, they're also coming from internal.
Another question, Radar.
I'm just checking, one sec. Got it, thanks. So that's great. Are the logs and or alerts exportable to SIEM tools? Yes, I mean, just to show that. The WAF logs are, I mean, very simple. Mostly the load balancer is connected via syslog, right? So all logs are exported via syslog. That's including the WAF logs. So that means you can then review them on any system. But for WAF, you also have the option to export them separately as well to a specific URI, for example, to ELK or something like that. And you can pass them on in a JSON or Splunk format and so on for your tools. So either you use syslog or you use this option to export. Both of them export the same data, so it's one of them is not superior to the other one, but both of them export those triggered rules. I hope that answers the question, Harvey. We have the Kemp Enterprise license. Do we need to license for using WAF? WAF is part of Enterprise Plus subscription. So you should not have any WAF on Enterprise only. You need to have the Enterprise Plus subscription. Cool. Cool. Are there any other questions? If not, it was great for you to be here today. I'm happy about that. I will give you back some time of your day, and I'm looking forward to November to present you the next webinar.